to that breaking news here that NCAA investigation, FBI investigation rather, into alleged corruption within the NCAA and involving several coaches. We've been going back and forth to this story just to give you a little bit of heads up because we've been giving 2-minute warning. That was 2 minutes ago. It looks like they are just about to begin laying out what the FBI says occurred. Let's listen.
My name is June Kim. I'm the acting United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Today, we announce charges of fraud and corruption in the world of college basketball. The picture painted by the charges brought today is not a pretty one. Coaches at some of the nation's top programs soliciting and accepting cash bribes. Managers and financial advisors circling blue-chip prospects like coyotes. And employees of one of the world's largest sportswear companies secretly funneling cash to the families of high school recruits. In all, we have charged 10 people in 3 separate complaints. 4 college basketball coaches, 3 people associated with professional managers and advisors, and 3 with ties to the major sportswear company, including its global marketing director for basketball. These men allegedly participated in two different but related schemes. In the first, college coaches took cash bribes from managers and advisors in exchange for directing players and their families to those bribers. In the second scheme, managers, advisors, and those affiliated with the sportswear company worked together to funnel money to families of some of the country's top high school recruits, upwards of $100,000, for the players' commitment to play for the schools sponsored by that company. Let me start with some details about the first scheme. We have charged 4 college basketball coaches: Chuck Person, Lamont Evans, Emmanuel Richardson, and Anthony Bland. They are all associate or assistant coaches at major Division I schools with top-tier basketball programs. They have all been in and around the game of basketball for a long time, and one, Chuck Person, played and coached in the NBA. All of them had the trust of the young players they coached and recruited, young men who looked up to them and believed that the coaches had their best interest at heart. Chuck Person, in describing his influence over one of his players, put it this way, quote, "He listens to one person, that is me." Chuck Person also explained that his players trusted and looked up to him because, as he reminded them, he had coached Kobe Bryant and had worked for Phil Jackson. But as alleged, these coaches abused that trust placed in them by the players and their families, and they violated the duties that they owed to their schools. In exchange for bribes ranging from $13,000 to almost $100,000 each, these coaches allegedly pushed particular managers and advisors on the players and their families. And certain of the coaches arranged for separate payments to be made to the families as well. Anthony Bland described what he could do for the managers and advisors this way, quote, "I can definitely mold the players and put them in the lap of you guys." The professionals whose lap the corrupt coaches put their players in were the defendants: Christian Dawkins, Munish Sood, and Rashawn Michelle. Dawkins was an athlete recruiter for a sports agency who was trying to start his own sports management business. Sood was an investment advisor, and Michelle owned a company that sold suits and other high-end clothing to professional athletes. For these men, bribing coaches was a business investment. They knew that the corrupt coaches, in return for bribes, would pressure the players to use their services. And they also knew that if and when those young players turned pro, that would mean big bucks for them in professional fees and profits. As Dawkins put it during a meeting that was recorded by law enforcement, quote, "If we take care of everybody, we control everything, you can make millions off of one kid. While pushing these professionals, the bribe coaches showed little regard for the players' well-being. They ignored red flags, seeing only the green of the cash bribes flowing their way. For example, in steering players to a financial advisor, who it turned out was actually cooperating with the government, most of the coaches never asked the advisor a single question about his qualifications, his track record in handling players' money, or really anything else about his business. A simple Google search by the coaches of the advisor's name would have revealed that the SEC had brought securities fraud charges against him just last year, including for misusing his professional athlete clients' money. Similarly, with Christian Dawkins, none of the coaches warned the players or their families that Dawkins had lost his job at a sports management company after an NBA Players Association investigation revealed that he had misused his client's credit card to pay tens of thousands in unauthorized purchases. But it wasn't just that the bribe-taking coaches ignored red flags and didn't seem to care about the qualifications of the advisors. As alleged, the coaches affirmatively lied to the players and their families. In talking to the families, they built up these professionals, some of whom they barely knew, with bald-faced lies. Chuck Person claimed that one of them was his own personal advisor and a financial advisor to Hall of Fame basketball player Charles Barkley. Well, that wasn't true. That advisor, the same one who was cooperating with the government, had never even met Charles Barkley and had never handled Chuck Person's money other than paying him cash bribes. Chuck Person also assured a player's mother that he himself had not received a penny for promoting that advisor to her. That was a lie too. That conversation took place 5 days after Person had taken an envelope filled with $15,000 in cash from that very advisor during a secret meeting in a Manhattan hotel room. By allegedly accepting bribes in this way, these four coaches not only breached their obligations to their schools, violated NCAA rules, and betrayed the trust of their players, they also committed serious federal crimes, as did the managers and advisors who paid them. The second scheme, although slightly different, came from the same playbook of fraud and corruption. In this scheme, Dawkins and Sood again worked with three people with ties to a major global sportswear company to send bribe money to the families of some of the country's top high school recruits. The three men are James Gatto, the global marketing director for basketball at the sportswear company, Merle Code, a business affiliate of the same sportswear company, and Jonathan Brad Augustine, the program director for an amateur basketball team sponsored by that company. The complaint alleges that these defendants conspired to secretly funnel six-figure payments to the families of three high school players. In exchange, the players would agree to commit to playing basketball at two colleges that were sponsored by that company, and eventually retain the advisory services of Dawkins and Sood, and to being sponsored by that sportswear company. Recognizing the illicit nature of these payments, Gatto and Code allegedly took steps to hide them. Instead of paying the families directly, they made the payments through Dawkins' company and Augustine's amateur basketball team. They also conspired to disguise the payments in the company's books by using fake invoices and false entries. As Merle Code put it in another recorded call, quote, "It's on the books, but it's not on the books for what it's actually for," close quote. As alleged, the charged defendants claim that the payments to the players and their families were made in coordination with the coaches at the two colleges sponsored by that company. Now, if you read the detailed allegations in the three complaints, totaling over 100 pages, you will find yourselves in the dark underbelly of college basketball. We were able to get into that world through a cooperating witness and two undercover agents posing as corrupt advisors and financial backers. And we obtained numerous court-authorized wiretaps, and made hundreds of consensual recordings. Through these recordings, we were able to hear, in the defendant's own words, their audacious, allegedly criminal schemes. And I'm going to quote a couple of them. As Dawkins put it in one recording, quote, "If you're going to fund those kind of guys," referring to the coaches at the most elite programs, Dawkins said, quote, "I mean, we'd be running college basketball," close quote. In another recorded conversation with the FBI undercover, Dawkins explained that what they were doing, funneling money to players' families, could, quote, "not be completely accounted for on paper because some of it is, whatever you want to call it, illegal," close quote. He was right. That is what we call it, illegal. So let me walk you through some of these visuals you have here. These two charts or diagrams show the two different schemes in a picture format. So this one shows the coaches. This is the alleged coaches bribery scheme. These are the managers and advisors who paid the bribes to these coaches, who in turn pressured players to go to use these managers once they turned pro. And some of the college coaches alleged to have funneled some of the bribes to the players and their families. This depicts the alleged sportswear company fraud scheme that has the company affiliates and the managers and advisors paying cash to families, players and their families, some of them directed, according to them, by the coaches. And in exchange, the players and families would commit to Division I schools. And they would file false certifications about their amateur status and would receive athletic scholarships in return. And these were schools that were sponsored by that company. This investigation has required the dedication, hard work, and skill of many, many people, and I want to recognize some of them. First, I want to thank our great partners at the FBI, represented here today by Assistant Director in Charge Bill Sweeney, Special Agent in Charge Mike McGarity, and Assistant Special Agent in Charge George Guzami. We thank them and the many terrific agents in the New York field office who worked tirelessly on this investigation. We also thank the agents around the country who helped execute the arrests last night and this morning. We do so many of our most important groundbreaking cases with the FBI, and this is certainly one of them. Second, I want to thank the career prosecutors and investigators in our office who have worked relentlessly and masterfully on this case. They are Assistant United States Attorneys Robert Boone, Ted Discant, Noah Solowychik, and Alini Floater, as well as Tatiana Martins and Russell Capone, the Chief and Deputy Chief of our Public Corruption Unit. And I also want to recognize the criminal investigators in our office, and in particular Laval Jackson for all of his work. For the defendants charged today, the madness of college basketball went well beyond the big dance in March. Month after month, the defendants exploited the hoop dreams of student athletes around the country, allegedly treating them as little more than opportunities to enrich themselves through bribery and fraud schemes. Fraud, abuse, and corruption of the type alleged in the charges brought today contaminates all that is good and pure around it, and it has no place in college sports. The defendants' alleged conduct not only sullied the spirit of amateur athletics, but it showed contempt for the thousands of players and coaches who follow the rules and play the game the right way. And as many of them hit the hardwood floors later this week for college basketball's first official day of practice, we hope that these charges and arrests will help keep the sport that they love clean and honest. Thank you. I'd like to bring to the podium now Bill Sweeney, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's New York field office.
Thank you, June, and thanks to your team who's on my right, and thanks to Mike and George for your leadership in the investigation, to all the agents, the forensic accountants, and the countless agents around the country who helped us execute the arrest this morning. Those charged today include athletics industry consultants, a financial advisor, an executive of major international athletics apparel company, and several coaches from both public and private universities, as well as high school level AAU. Coaches have a significant influence over their players, and with that influence comes the responsibility to guide these young athletes in the right direction. As alleged, however, the coaches charged today cast aside that responsibility, choosing instead to use their influence to benefit themselves, without regard to the players' own genuine interests. All of those charged today contributed to a pay-to-play culture that has no business in college basketball. Today's arrest should serve as a warning to others choosing to conduct business this way in the world of college athletics. We have your playbook. Our investigation is ongoing, and we are conducting additional interviews as I speak. We have a lot more work to do, and I encourage those who wish to proactively provide information to contact us through our tip line at 212-384-2135. Thank you.
I'll take some questions.
I don't know that it comes as a surprise anyway that money is a huge part of college sports. I guess my question is, how widespread do you believe this is? That's the first question. As it has been. And the second question, when you look at this circle, not questioning that any of this is illegal, who's the victim in this? Because it looks like from this circle, everyone is benefiting in some way financially, players, coaches, sportswear companies, and colleges. So who's the victim?
So you had two questions. One is how pervasive do I think it is, and who's the victim. On the pervasiveness, I'm not going to comment beyond what we've charged, but there's a lot there, as you can see. It's 100+ pages of allegations. 10 people have been arrested, 4 coaches at major top-tier basketball programs. So that's a significant number of people and conduct that that affects a number of important programs. So, the investigation, as Bill said, is ongoing. This is, it's now overt, obviously. It was covert until today, and we will continue to be investigating. So we'll see how pervasive it is. On the question of who's the victim, it's clear that in this scheme, for example, there are false statements being made to the colleges saying, and those were generated by the professional managers, people working at the sports apparel company, saying, we're going to give you money, you should commit to this school, and yet they make false certifications to the school saying that they are amateur athletes and have not been paid. So the schools are, in a way, the victim. The schools are also a victim where they have hired college coaches who are taking bribes, cash bribes from managers and advisors to direct players who are entrusted in their care to certain professional advisors. The schools are also, a number of them are public schools, and they are all schools that receive money, federal funded money. And so to the extent the bribery laws prohibit, the federal laws prohibit those who work for public institutions or institutions that receive public money from taking bribes. And I think all of us, the public, anyone who plays in the game, are victims of that type of conduct.
All right, in case you are just joining us, there is a lot to uncover here. You've just been listening to a news conference there out of the Southern District of New York. The Assistant U.S. Attorney June Kim laying out 2 separate schemes, an investigation that dates back to September of 2016 involving several assistant basketball coaches receiving payments and bribes to send recruits to certain advisors, to certain managers. Also a separate scheme that has a connection here to Kentucky that involves a school in Kentucky where the FBI is alleging that there are a number of people, one of them connected to the company Adidas, that was paying at least 3 high school players $100,000. They are named as player 10, player 11, and player 12 to get those students to enroll at a specific school to which Adidas sponsors. We do know there is one specific school here that Adidas does sponsor. U of L fits that description as the enrollment numbers described in this criminal complaint, more than 100 pages long. It describes it as University 6 and has a specific enrollment number, which is quite strikingly similar to that of U of L.
And what it says there is that that student was accepting the family of the student was accepting $100,000 in payments.
It is a widespread investigation. They say there were 2 separate schemes, as you saw right there, calling this the dark underbelly of college basketball. There's a lot to uncover. We still have hundreds of pages to go through.
And you're going to be on this throughout the afternoon.
That's right. Our Chris Williams also on campus right now. We're going to check in with him throughout the afternoon.
All right.